Hello and welcome. We are here today at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. for a press briefing on a report from an independent study team on unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Get the aluminum foil, Bonnie. It's happening. It's happening, Bon Bon. I even put my space shirt on for this. So I don't know if you guys saw today, but this time it looks like NASA is on the big alien train. As a firm believer in the intergalactic intelligence, I am all for more UFO research, or UAPs, I guess as they call them now. So I'm going to give a little rundown on what happened today. Back in June of 2022, NASA commissioned an independent report analysis, a study, if you will, of certain UAP recordings, sightings, data, and was looking for a summary of what the next steps should be for NASA. So you're probably wondering, okay, what does that mean? What does any of that mean? You may or may not know that the Department of Defense has already started up it's called the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW for short. Clever name. Very Marvel Cinematic Universe. But a lot of that information, a lot of that data collection is being done behind closed doors for national security. Well, NASA is very open source and very transparent about a lot of their scientific research and a lot of their data. And a lot of that stuff is freely available to be disseminated. I think almost everything that they get. So it's significant that NASA is throwing their hat in the ring when it comes to UAP research, because that means we might finally get some actual database data. Because that means we actually might get some real data-based research into UAPs, I suppose. So who is this independent team? NASA's UAP Independent Study Team is made up of 16 experts from diverse backgrounds in science, technology, data, artificial intelligence, space exploration, aerospace safety, media, and commercial innovation. What's media and commercial innovation? That's interesting. Essentially smart guys, and apparently one marketer. They were assigned to pinpoint the data available around UAP and produce a report that outlines a roadmap for how NASA can use its tools of science to obtain useful data to evaluate and categorize the nature of UAP going forward. This is not a review of UAP events. So I think that's an interesting point to make. In the briefing and in the report, there was no declarative statements on any specific event. Well, that's only half true. They do make some asides, if you will, in the report that are like data-driven explanations for some of the things that we've seen, that were reported, rather. So that's boring, right? What did they actually find? Let's see. They say it is increasingly clear that the majority of UAP observations can be attributed to known phenomena or occurrences. When it comes to studying such phenomena, our overarching challenge is the data needed to explain these anomalous sightings often do not exist. This includes eyewitness reports, which on their own can be interesting and compelling, but are not reproducible and usually lack the information needed to make any definitive conclusions about a UAP's prevalence. Provenance? About a UAP's provenance. Thus, to understand UAP, a rigorous, evidence-based, data-driven scientific framework is essential. This report offers a vision on how NASA could contribute to understanding the phenomenon and how the agency's approach will complement the whole of government's effort to understand UAP, which essentially all means that they didn't have the data needed. And I think the point that they're trying to make is that it's not really useful to analyze eyewitness reports or anything like that on the face of it, because you don't have the data to actually back any of that stuff up. And instead of outright dismissing all of the reports, they argue that the goal of NASA and the government as a whole, like ARROW, should be the collection of data underneath a rigorous framework so that all the data can be compared to each other, like internal confidential data compared to pilot data compared to like eyewitness report data. And there's no framework that currently exists for that kind of reporting. They even go so far as saying The advanced sensors on the Terra and Aqua missions should be directly utilized to retroactively probe the state of the local Earth, ocean, and atmospheric conditions that are spatially and temporally coincident with UAP initially detected via other methods. Thus, NASA can help determine whether specific environmental factors are associated with reported UAP properties or occurrences. So I think this is a really good argument on their point. We should use satellite data and advanced sensors on the Terra and Aqua missions to go back in time and see if there's anything happening environmentally in that space where those UAPs were reported, and to see if there's maybe a through line in some environmental factor which may lead down to some environmental phenomenon that we're not aware of yet that explains a lot of these sightings, which is, obviously a very smart way to approach this problem, because that is probably what most of the these sightings are. Science would be interested to know if there are any environmental phenomena that we are like super, super rare, so we're just really unfamiliar with it. They also advocate for the use of the advanced radar network called NEXRAD, Doppler Radar Network, which is 160 weather radars that are jointly operated by the FAA, U.S. Air Force, and the National Weather Service, as well as the geostationary operational environmental satellites, which could be essential for distinguishing the difference between just regular clutter and something that is actually out of the ordinary. They also advocate for the use of SAR, which is synthetic aperture radar, which has a much higher angular resolution of the Earth and can confirm changes in motion in speed and like high G maneuvers at a much higher rate than some of the other technologies. So they think that the use of that system for this specific purpose was going to be essential for confirming whether or not these UAP are performing maneuvers that are actually impossible, that people are actually claiming, right? This approach for NASA is expected, right? Because NASA is generally trusted as a science-first, data-driven, open, and honest organization. So they argue that NASA taking the forefront in future data collection is going to play an important role in reducing the stigma that people have around reporting UFOs and UAPs. They think that analyzing these events from a data-driven standpoint instead of a sensationalist standpoint, that they can do some work in changing the way people think about UFOs and actually taking the subject seriously. And they think as far as getting people involved, one of the panel members mentioned the use of cell phones, right?
There's several billion of these floating around, right? And they take, I'm holding up a cell phone for those on the radio. They take wonderful, high-quality images, have high-quality metadata, record local magnetic field, sound, gravitational field. There's a wealth of data that a cell phone takes. I think if we have a collection where interesting events are collected by citizens, hosted, and you have multiple images of the same event, we will be able to learn a lot.
Maybe creating some sort of app that people can use, that would take advantage of all of the sensors that phones have, and record events as they're happening. And if, multiple people record the same event using the same app, we might get multiple data points from different angles, blah, blah, blah. All of these things are actually going to be usable by NASA as opposed to just, a picture and a story, which I think is a good idea. And really the problem stems from the fact that there's not a standardized federal system for reporting UAP sightings. I think the general FAA guidelines are just to not call any more government agencies and just call the cops and maybe some independent UFO reporting people, which isn't really helpful when it comes to gathering data, because you might tell somebody that, but the data that you give them might not be scientifically rigorous or even meaningful in any way.
NASA is committed to immediately contributing to the federal government's unified UAP effort, and as you heard, we have appointed a director of UAP research. In their role, they will centralize communications, resources, and data analytical capabilities across the federal government to establish a robust database for the evaluation of any future data.
They've essentially taken the findings of this report, determined that it's important enough to spend our dollars on it, and assigned an entire human being whose whole existence is to find UFO stuff. And if that's not the coolest freaking job in the world right now, I don't know what is. And it's pretty exciting because they've already committed all of their data and all of their findings, all of their interpretations of the data to be public, which is going to be really, really great, obviously, so we can actually get our hands on some of that stuff. And I think the approach that they're taking is this sort of analyze everything so we can understand what's normal, right? So we know what it looks like when a balloon is caught by a satellite, or when there are like ice shards in the solar flare of some reflection or whatever the hell it is.
If you want to find a needle in a haystack, you've got two choices. Either you know exactly what the needle looks like and you design a very good filter to look for the needle. It's called match filtering in sort of AI work, machine learning, signal processing. Or you don't know what you're looking for. And with anomalies, that's really the case we're in. We're looking for things we don't understand. So if you want to find something strange in a haystack, you better know exactly what hay looks like.
If we can analyze all of those data points and understand what normal looks like, then we can actually determine what is abnormal. And I think that's a pretty solid approach, especially since right now we're literally, have our thumbs up our asses. I think this is really fun because finally we have some people who are like actually working on this stuff. And the big problem that they're finding is that we don't have any of our sensors or any of our equipment specifically calibrated and specifically looking for UAP. Everything, all of these UAP sightings and all of the data that we have about UAP are all caught on sensors that are calibrated and are made to be doing other things. It's kind of a mix mash of information, and there's a lot of clutter, there's a lot of noise in the data. And so the use of AI, the use of machine learning, those sorts of things, the targeted use of those things is going to really help flush out all the noise and figure out exactly what is being picked up by this series of equipment. All in all, I think this just means that this is finally being taken seriously, which I find incredibly exciting. Like the old senator said, there are estimated trillion planets that are habitable in the universe. So it'd be sick we finally had communication with one of them. At least, Jesus Christ, where is everybody? I think the report ends in a very succinct way. Thus, there is an intellectual continuum between extrasolar technosignatures, solar system SETI, and potential unknown alien technology operating in Earth's atmosphere. If we recognize the plausibility of any of these, then we should recognize that all are at least plausible. All right, thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Bye.